Have you ever wondered if there's something in your birth chart that can point towards the family pattern you inherited but were never necessarily meant to continue? There's an asteroid called Atreus, and the mythology behind it is fascinating when you look at it through the lens of family dynamics. The House of Atreus is one of the most dysfunctional family stories in Greek mythology, and I mean dysfunctional. Generation after generation, you have betrayal, abandonment, revenge, power struggles, parents hurting children, children retaliating against parents, siblings turning against siblings. But here's what makes the mythology so interesting. Every generation believes their actions are justified because of what the generation before them did. Someone gets hurt, so they retaliate, and their retaliation hurts someone else. That person grows up carrying the wound and eventually responds from it. Now the cycle belongs to another generation, which is exactly how family patterns can work. Nobody in your family is feeding somebody their children like Atreus did. I mean, hopefully they're not. Maybe grandma survived by never talking about her feelings, so mom learned that vulnerability wasn't safe. Then you grow up feeling like you had to handle everything yourself, and suddenly you're wondering why asking someone for help feels almost physically uncomfortable. Original circumstances disappeared generations ago, but the response survived. That's why I think asteroid Atreus can be really interesting in a natal chart. Looking at its house placement, this can potentially describe where the family story shows up in your life. Atreus in the fourth house, this is the family itself, childhood, parents, ancestry, the emotional environment you grew up in, and patterns that have been normalized because that's just how our family is. Is it in your seventh house? Maybe you're discovering that relationship patterns didn't actually begin with you. You keep finding yourself inside dynamics that look strangely similar to the relationships you watched growing up. The eighth house, now we could be getting into deeper inheritance, family secrets, money, control, loss, trauma, intimacy, or the things nobody really talks about but everybody somehow carries. Pay special attention to what Atreus touches in the chart. Atreus with the moon could bring the pattern through the emotional maternal lineage. In Saturn, there may be inherited rules, responsibilities, guilt, expectations, or family roles. It's touching Pluto, there can be buried family dynamics surrounding survival, control, secrecy, or power. Atreus with the South Node would be especially interesting because that could describe a pattern that feels incredibly familiar. You may not even recognize it as a pattern at first, just what you know. Here's the most important part of the mythology. The House of Atreus doesn't end because somebody finally gets revenge correctly. It ends when the system itself changes. Eventually we get to Orestes. Instead of another act of vengeance deciding what happens next, Athena introduces judgment and trial. And for the first time, the response is different. And that's where I think the consciousness piece comes in. Sometimes the cycle breaker in a family isn't about proving that the generations before you were wrong. It's about recognizing that their survival strategy doesn't have to become your life strategy. Your grandmother, she may have needed it. Your mother may have inherited it, and you may have learned it. But consciousness gives you the ability to finally ask, does it need to continue through me? And that's what I think Atreus means in the birth chart. It doesn't mean your family was cursed. It shows where you inherited a story and you have the opportunity to now respond differently.